Hey, this is Alex from Sombo. Today I've got Martin and James with me to talk about some of their projects. Yeah, how are you doing, guys?
We're doing all good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm loving your background, Marv.
I know that was the first photo prototype of our little podcast logo, and it looks very creepy. But the original photo is like our Christmas card that we would give out if we were a couple.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah, that's cool.
I enjoy it, but I actually have found a photo that I like less than photos of myself. So you've done well there, Marv. But no, I'm very well, thank you, Alex. How are you?
Hey. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Not at all, mate. Not at all. Pleasure.
Yeah. Cool. So just sort of thought I'd start with a bit of background. Obviously, I met both of you when I was at uni. But yeah, I'd kind of like you to tell me about what your journeys have been as musicians. So obviously we all met on the guitar course, but what kind of got you into music and yeah, where has your journey taken you so far?
All right.
Okay, so I've always from a very young age I've always enjoyed music. I did the recorder at primary school, and I found it. I didn't notice this until years later, but I found it very, very satisfying to get the part right. Like playing, I can't even remember the tunes. I can't remember my teacher's name. I just found it very satisfying getting those parts right. Fast forward to secondary school, I was about 13, 14, and I went to see, don't laugh, I went to see Status Quo at the Colston Hall in Bristol.
Yes.
And the lead guitarist and vocalist, Francis Rossi, was sort of at the front doing his thing, my first ever gig. And it's cliche, but it was a real sort of fork in the road moment for me there. I just thought that's great and I want to do it.
Awesome.
So,
how old were you then?
I was about 13, I think, 13 or 14. 14, we'll say 14.
Cool.
The following year, a good friend of mine at school, who I'd known for a long time, was offering guitar lessons. Very sort of simple, I'll show you the tab, what song do you want to learn this week kind of thing. And he taught me how to read tab. He taught me simple open chords. That was when I was 15. Mum bought me a guitar. Amazing. It's only a little Squire Showmaster. I've still got it now. seen me very well throughout the years at college, and even at uni I was still playing that guitar. And yeah, I had another fork in the road moment when I met another guy who was playing guitar completely by chance. He was sat on his doorstep playing guitar because he'd locked himself out and he didn't have his keys. So I was about to apply for an apprenticeship at Fowler's. And at the end of that year, I was at sixth form A level doing stuff I really wasn't that interested in. And he kind of just went, do you want to come to Bath? You play guitar. Do you want to come to Bath College and go on the music course? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's give this a go. And I'll never forget, this is the funniest thing. The night before my audition and interview with Bath College, he taught me the pentatonic scale.
Hey.
Because you need to know it to get on that course. But yeah, and it kind of went from there. I joined a band, loved every second of it, and everyone kind of decided more or less to go to BIM. And I thought, well, I want to carry on doing this. I want to further the education in it. And that's where you met me, Alex. So
hey.
There you go. That's kind of the thing, music being around always as a child, just sort of, yeah, it pushed me to become a musician myself and learning every day, getting better every day, hopefully. And yeah, just trying to spend as much time as possible with musicians who I consider to be better than myself, because every single story you read, it's always the same story. If you want to get better, you've got to play with better musicians all the time. Yeah. When you sort of match them, you can stay with them if they suit you, but you should. The natural progression is to then play with better musicians again. But yeah, you need to find out where you slot in, I think, and I've more or less got there, I think, eventually. So that's my story. I've spoken way too much. Marv, please.
Yeah, I mean, my musical journey kind of started at about 8 years old. I remember my sister had a keyboard, and she got bored of it, so I got given it. And maybe rose-tinted glasses, but I remember maybe the first day I had it, or definitely within the first week, I remember learning Axel F from ear. I just remember picking the notes up. So that's been quite prevalent through my musical journey, and just like I can just hear a song and kind of mess around with that. And that just kind of grew. It kind of was dormant for a while, from like maybe 8 to about 17 before I picked up guitar. I was just strictly keyboard. And then skateboarding kind of took over my life from about 11. But that then helped in terms of my listening to music and my growth there. So picking up bands like Pink Floyd and Bob Dylan, all these older bands, and trying to get into that before I kind of got into newer music. That was more like my outlet. But then, yeah, learning guitar about 17. That really was the big explosion in terms of my musical growth. And then instead of being self-taught from like a keyboard perspective, I wanted to just go from the bottom up, build up all the chords, all the technique, so that that instrument's different to the way I view a keyboard or a piano. Got better and better on that, got a lot more confidence on that, and then was still very nervous and socially awkward, but that kind of helped a bit more. And then I remember getting my grades 6, 7, and 8 acoustic guitar grades, because I think that's why I need to go to university, and getting that milestone, knowing that I was like, there's no way I can do this, to then, oh, you've got a distinction. That was quite a big leap up. So that gave me the good confidence there. And it's then getting to that point of, when can you call yourself a musician, you know? It's that really weird kind of tipping point. So that was definitely a first step there. And then going to uni, getting in there, that was another step. Meeting both of you, meeting loads of people from everywhere that have many similar stories, that nice camaraderie, that communication, that friendship kind of bonding there. Wanting to also go into uni, like I'd say I was a mature student, like 23, 24, which is fairly still young, but going there with the purpose of like, right, I'm sad and depressed in my life now working, this isn't what I want to do, I've got some confidence now, so I want to go there with the intent to have music as a career. So that was a really good push for me, which fortunately that's what happened. Got into a function covers band with Merit, and then we kind of built that from the ground up. It really was from graduation, really what it, Merit, because the agency we were on, they were actually at the this booth, and I remember picking up a thing and talking to the guy, and he's like, yeah, I have an open auditions here. So that really was the second we finished our uni kind of life, we kind of delved into that, and it was it was amazing for 5 years, pretty much solid, building up that foundation, building up that kind of career. And I still can't believe that I get to play an instrument every single day and make money off of it. It doesn't even matter, even if it's just a normal wage. The fact is that I can sit down and play a chord and be like, wow, this is cool. That beats fame, success, any of that. I think at the core, that's the reason why we love to do what we do.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I can, once all this COVID stuff sorted out, and hopefully in June, maybe even like next month, where gigs can kind of open up these restrictions, we can carry on the fun, because I've dearly missed doing it as a career. That's
totally.
where I am.
Awesome. So like when you started doing the function stuff, do you think that challenged you in a lot of ways, or did it bring you on at all?
Absolutely.
A huge challenge, yeah. I think the Merit might agree with me here that the preconceived notion of a function band musician or a cover band musician is that either you failed at the real career, or that, it's really easy, all the songs are really easy, but they're not,
No, not at all.
As we've talked about many times, you don't necessarily, you're trying to imitate someone else's sound. As a band of people, you would have your own sound. So you still have to work at that and maintain that. And one person's I Will Always Love You will be different to another person's I Will Always Love You. But trying to then play guitar parts or piano parts or harmony vocal parts from like world-class musicians, and then you get stumped and you go, this is really, really hard. but you have to make it, you have to come across as like, you have to almost come across like they are really easy and they are beneath you, but they're really not. It's just getting that like level of respect and going, you know, Joe Jackson Jr. on a lot of Michael Jackson songs, you think, wow, it sounds easy, but it's so not. And then try and do it on live thing. So
yeah,
that's
totally.
my 2 cents.
So when you approach that, do you? Oh, sorry, Mez, carry on.
I just wanted to add a little story in there.
Oh my god.
We did a cruise audition. We didn't take it in the end because sadly it was only for like 6 months and we'd never been on a cruise before. So that's a big jump from like doing it on the weekends to like, oh, see you later, 6 months, here we go. And one of the songs, they added them, I think it was like the night before. Yeah, it was the night before the audition. They were like, oh, you also need to do this one. And the other one, I'll never forget it. And I know Marv won't either. It was Top of the World by the Carpenters. Now, we all know that song. Great tune. Love it. Love the Carpenters. But obviously, so you can just play the stock sort of chords. But when I was listening to it, I was like, there's pedal steel guitar on it. I've never played pedal steel in my life. But to add to the challenge factor that you brought up, Alex, I decided that whether it's on pedal steel or not, I'm playing it. I'm playing that. Went into the audition, played it. I felt like I did an okay job. You know, you kind of got to embellish in places.
Yeah.
And sort of, what's the word we use, Marv? It's amalgamate parts and put them together. And yeah, I believe once we finished, they gave us compliments, said, yeah, it sounded great, you guys were good, and et cetera, et cetera. And they then looked at me and they were like, the only guitarist I've seen at this audition actually attempt to put the pedal parts on guitar. I was like, yeah, it wasn't easy, but just that satisfaction of pulling it off live and they noted, and that, as you said, Marv, that is the fame and fortune for me.
Yeah. Sorry, I think my internet's just gone. Yes, boys. Sorry, I lost you, Ben, because my internet went.
All good, mate. All good. It happens.
Hey. So yeah, you were talking about obviously the function band thing. Do you think that's like had a part in your own music? Obviously, Marv, you're doing Afroloon.
That is right. I chose the most awkward name to go under. But
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was this like story behind that name?
Well, we were in a previous project and we were trying to come up with names, loads of them. And I remember just kind of writing down normal ones, and then I was taking all of the three people's names all together and looking at anagrams. So I was really into, and still am into now, like just randomness, things not necessarily having a meaning, but then when you look back, you can kind of attach loads of meaning, I guess. And that was one of them. I think I might have even got that from like a philosophy book. I think Afroloon, like Loon.
Okay.
It was something similar, and I think I then just try to riff on that name. And then my song titles are words that sound, say, complex, but have like a really nice deep meaning. They just kind of, I don't know, it's just there kind of placement. But definitely with function stuff, spending a lot of years charting out the structures of songs and where the chord changes are and how effective it is, and going, okay, the reason why I like this song more than this one is because maybe it has the extra bar at the end of the chorus and yada yada, picking up these techniques. That definitely helps in terms of the way I want to structure songs. And when I have an initial idea, knowing that if I complete as much of it as I can and get the actual structure, maybe get at least get the bridge, chorus, hook, outro, that's easier going back into it. Much like when you're learning a new cover song, you already have all the parts there. So I think when I go down to the kind of produce or tweak stuff, that's definitely something I picked up from function band work, whereas before I'd have like a 12-second idea for about 3 years, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's cool. So is it, what are your plans with it?
Well, I got a new record coming out April 2nd, I think, next Friday.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to collaborate with a lot of friends now. They're going to put vocals over the top of them because it's all instrumental. Build that way. Maybe start looking into doing beats, like maybe more sampled beats and go down that kind of route. But it would be nice to perform it. But it would be interesting to rehearse it with like, there's like 4 guitar tracks. And again, like Merritt said with his Carpenters story, like trying to amalgamate certain things. But it would be lush to try and perform it live, I think.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So who are the singers you've got involved with it?
There's one called Matt Lloyd. His real name's Rob. I think he signed Green Brick Records, which is like a lot of the Split Profits. I think Res One from Split Profits owns it or runs it. His music's really, really cool. I really like it. It's really dark and introspective. And he's a really good producer as well. So I think he's going to be on a song. I think the song's called Organon on my record. I don't know what he's going to call it, but that would be cool. And
That is cool.
I need to then send out the messages, I guess, to the other singers that I've got on the list. That'd be quite good. So maybe it'd be nice to do like a 5-6 track EP of songs I've already got out or ones I didn't put on an album and do that. So kind of bridge the gap, which then also leads on to Merritt and myself. We've got basically a whole album's worth of music that had lyrics all over the top and vocals over the top, which we're going to see if we can find people to sing over and do like a collaboration album. That'd be cool. I say collaboration apple then, I mean a collaboration album with the apple inside being the core.
Okay. Nice, like that. So where has your inspiration come for like say the music you've done together? What has influenced you each individually, would you say?
I'll let Merritt speak because I just spoke for ages, but
Sorry?
he's got some good things.
So obviously when you mention influences, you always talk about your favorite bands and your favorite musicians, guitarists, producers, whatever. So undoubtedly there are a number of bands I listen to. And I have stolen a number of certain things in chord progression. I love complex chord progressions that you crowbar like a moving chord in. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like Marv will tell you, we will literally spend, and we have spent like 4 hours on one chord, just being like, how about this? What about the add 4? What about the suspended 9th? What about the second? What about this? What about that? What about an add 13?
Absolute nerds.
Oh, mate, it's my music theory is nowhere near to the level of Marv's. However, I think we both sort of compensate on different fronts with that. Marv, I remember the last time we wrote together, you spent a lot of time sort of voice leading in some of the most complex ways, which is amazing. I love that. But then also you turn to me and go, Merritt, mate, like, where am I going wrong here? And I'll go, well, why don't you take that out and put this one in? And it's usually like a major chord with no extensions and nothing like that. And he's like, it's exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed. So we work really well on that basis. It would be correct if I were to say that Marv has definitely influenced the way I write. He's the biggest musical encouragement in my life. Always pushing me to do better, always pushing me to not give up. There was a point I had a real bad patch, and if it hadn't been for Marv being like, you need to sort this out, otherwise this can't go on. If it wasn't for that, I would be potentially working somewhere full-time right now. So in terms of influence, in terms of help, Marv is definitely number one, I would say. Absolutely. And I'm not just trying to make him look wonderful and compliment him. I'm saying it as it is, as it happened. So yeah, and I mean, point 2, I'm not tangenting, this is all part of the same. Point 2, playing all of these function songs, these Motown tunes, and you sort of, oh, I really like that chord. I really like that extension. There's a version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. We all know that one. So obviously you play the first chord. I play it as a B over A. And then you've got the second chord, which is a moving chord, which obviously it moves down chromatically, doesn't it? I can't remember the exact name of the chord, but the extensions, again, I was like, I love that. So I threw some chords around it, and that's how I write. That is genuinely how I write. Cool. I just take a load of chords that I'm like, how in the name of God am I going to make any of these work? And I somehow do my best to make them work. And now it's very much the same. It comes from jams, it comes from this. And then sometimes the traditional way, I'll be listening to an old Beatles tune or an old Queen tune or an old UFO tune or something. I'll be like, oh, I really like that. What's he doing there? Okay. My latest inspiration, you're going to love this, is the Muppets Treasure Island soundtrack.
What?
The film, The Muppets Treasure Island.
Have you gone mad?
No, honestly, Hans Zimmer did it, and he did an incredible job on there.
No
so
way.
The other day, I was like, oh, I love that. I love that change. It's really melancholic, but it really feeds back into the, what's he doing? And I couldn't quite work it out, so I found the score online. And I now know how he does it. It's going to be featured in a song at some point. But yeah, that's kind of my inspiration. It comes from the usual places, but it also comes from working with musicians like Marv who know their stuff, you know, and just picking up bits and bobs, and even like a melody. That's something else I like doing, taking a really standard melody and seeing what chords you can throw underneath to make that not a simple melody anymore, to make that like it's still a simple melody, but the chords underneath it do not reflect necessarily. They just work in that context.
Yeah.
So yeah, throwing chords together.
Awesome.
That's what I like to do.
Fair enough. So you mentioned, like, obviously Marv kind of helps to bring you out of that rut that you found yourself in. So would you say, like, either of you have any advice that you've been given before as musicians that's been like really helpful in particular?
I think generally, if you need to be so behind your art and just be unabashed and be like, I love this, I think this is great, because that confidence really shows. I think listen to as much music as possible, really ask for feedback, and don't be worried if your best friend in the world doesn't like it, because they're not necessarily your audience. Try to be as vulnerable as possible in that regard, always just try to create stuff. So just try and make loads of art and loads of music, and try not to let stuff like that in, and that people are generally positive and want to help you out, and I guess not necessarily if you dream it will happen, but like hard work and talent equals success. I've seen many people that are infinitely more talented than me. Like Merritt and me know the person I'm probably talking about, but the drive wasn't there, the hard work wasn't there, the vulnerability to want to ask people for feedback, even the commitment just to sit down and write a song a day or write a riff a day wasn't there, you know? So I think trying to piece all them together and then maybe look back and go, okay, is eating healthier gonna work? Is going to sleep for longer going to work? You know, what am I doing to kind of feed this? And also take breaks. Was very bad at just burning out and going all out and never let my mind rest. But having a weekend off can actually be very productive.
Totally, yeah. How about you, Mez?
So really sort of further things that Marv said. One of my favorite guitarists ever, he once said, because of a lot of things that were going on in his life around the time that his musical success was sort of starting to take off. Someone said, how do you do all that? And his response was, it's got to come from deep within you, and eventually others will follow. It could be the most standard 4-chord song, pop song, whatever, a really complex metal tune, something really proggy. But if you believe in it, if you show that you have that belief in it, other people are going to see that and go, the confidence is there, And it's almost like an innate thing of, if the confidence is there, then we're going to follow you, and we're going to invest monetaries in what you do. And that's obviously how people build up fan bases and get well known. And yeah, again, just like Marv said, taking breaks is very important. Doing something else, creating all the time is fantastic and wonderful. But if your body's not reciprocating that, if your brain is not going, yeah, we're on this, you're going to end up chasing your own tail. And eventually, yeah, music is my life without a shadow of a doubt. I enjoy other things as well, but music is where the buck stops, if you like. But there are even still days now, they're getting rarer and rarer, but there are even still days where I'll look at the guitar and think, I can't touch that today. I can't face it. But that's where, we have to remember we're human beings, and we need to look after ourselves, eat well, sleep well, drink more water than you should be advised to, really. And yeah, just treat yourself well, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
The more sort of critical you are about your own work, I find this as well, the longer you don't release something, the more you're going to be able to talk yourself out of it. If you don't release something, as soon as if you sat there like, yeah, I feel like this is done, and then you don't release it, or you don't send it to someone, you're going to talk yourself out of it. You're going to hear something and go, oh, is that really, I'll change that note, and oh no, I'll change that chorus, and that guitar part's not quite, nah. So just get it out there, get it finished, get it out there, be proud of it, because at the end of the day, if you started playing music to be famous and rich, you're in the wrong industry. So it's clear that yeah, absolutely. It's clear that you enjoy your craft. So you need to craft and craft and craft. And my last thing, because again, I know I'm talking too much, my last thing is once you are in that mindset of having the ability to write, record, be creative, get as much out and recorded as you physically can. Look at the best bands and artists who ever exist in history right now. The reason why they're so big is because they released this song, and that's a banger. That was #1. That was in the top 10 in this country. That did really well here. This is a fan favorite live. That's the whole point. It's just creating. You could write the best song in the world, but if you've got no others, you ain't going to be worth anything. So you need to look after yourself. You need to be nice to yourself, and you need to keep that point going.
Totally, yeah.
And being a nice person. I think being a nice person, a kind person, and taking time for others, and being a good friend and a shoulder to cry, and all these traits that everyone should strive for, that speaks sometimes a lot more than your actual musical output at a certain time,
Totally, yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you mentioned the whole thing of getting burnt out, and I think all of us, I'm sure both of you at some point, and definitely me, can relate to that, like just getting so obsessed by, you're constantly told as a kid or when you're growing up through this journey, being like, you need to practice, you need to, dedicate all of your time to doing it. And it's so easy. And I found this personally over the last year in lockdown, where I've been unable to go out and see my mates, been unable to do whatever. You find yourself putting so much pressure and stress on yourself. And yeah, I think I completely agree with you. It's so good to do something that takes you away from music for a bit. And yeah, that's really interesting. That kind of brings me on to my next point, really, is like, how have you guys found the lockdown? Because obviously it's been a pretty hard time for us all.
I mean, as an introvert myself, I found it great because I can spend so much time on my own. That just came from, I have a sister, but she's disabled and she needed a lot of care from my mum. So I was just left to my own devices, completing Sonic at like 6 years old and video games being my life. So to me, none of it's been a struggle. The struggle for me was like making sure I reached out to people or would communicate back. So for me, it's been nice, especially with the whole thing of gigs being taken away, that I was like, right, maybe I should expand in terms of my musical career. So I try to learn to produce and get that to a good ability. Again, starting up a solo kind of project was really, really good. and again, doing other things, learning French or getting into exercising and eating healthy, all these other things to kind of go, right, what can I plant the seeds for when this does happen, when we start gigging again?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, maybe connecting with old friends and things. But for me, I haven't found it tough really at all.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And what about you, Merritt? Have you?
So I haven't. There have been times where and the funny thing is, the most recurring thought. So I'm sure you don't mind me saying this. I suffer with social anxiety, but it's not necessarily to do with people. It's more so to do with situations that I feel are beyond my control. So being in a vehicle that I'm not driving, or I'm not directly, I don't directly know the individual who's driving, or certain things, just certain, situations that are very specific, that one day I might be fine with, the next I might be totally uncomfortable with. The one thing I've actually been struggling with recently is going back out into the world and being a musician again. But the musical aspect has never ever scared me. That's the thing. I'm very sociable, but I don't like crowds of people and hordes of people. But I can face anything with a guitar strapped to me. I never ever worry. But so that's one thing. Despite the fact I've had to start working at Asda, I've been there since last June. I'm a cleaner. The team there are brilliant. I get on with everyone. It's such an eclectic bunch as well. For everyone from sort of all walks of life. They've really helped with a lot of things emotionally speaking. My manager is very understanding. She's very, very good at sort of personal people skills and things like that. And it gave me purpose temporarily throughout this process. And I'm actually quite glad for a lot of things. So it's not common knowledge as such as of yet, but I am actually in the midst of doing my own album right now, which is, I've actually again taken inspiration from Marv, just sort of doing instrumental guitar led with sort of electronic beats and stuff, and the process is incredible. I love it. I love writing and recording, and it's given me so much time to like really look at the guitar and kind of be like, what do I need to improve on? Where do I need to tighten the screws? So that's been amazing. I've learned, actually, one of the most important things that I'm going to take away from all this is what I've learned about myself and what I've learned about the people who were around me. And it's opened up a lot of doors as to who's really valuable in my life and who doesn't really have the time of day for me, who doesn't deserve to have a place in my life. And so it's kind of been up and down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but ultimately I am glad this period of time happened. And I know I'd get like lynched and stoned or whatever for doing that, for saying that, but that's how I feel. It's not been easy for me, but I am glad it's happened because it's another facet of life that we've all lived through that I've managed to sort of survive in and adapt. And it just goes to show that the human will is so much more powerful than anyone thinks it actually is,
Totally, yeah.
But I also think it shows us as a lot more sort of a lot more basic and simple as individuals, and generally the whole race. It shows us as a lot simpler than we actually think we are, because I think we take for granted what we can do, how we can change things, and we think we're a lot more advanced than we actually are. And I've been spending a lot of time looking at sort of social and political commentary, and I've learned a lot about that, and I've learned a lot about myself and debating and things. But yes, so I'm glad it's happened, but there have been some real low moments and moving forward some real highs. So
yeah, that's actually such a refreshing take on it. I think, myself, I live with like a load of musicians, and a lot of the people I've spoken to about this. Everyone's been struggling so much. So the fact that both of you have said, you know, you've actually really taken something from it is so refreshing to hear. You know, that's amazing. Especially, you know, giving that, you know, the lack of income that's obviously come from function gigs and that sort of thing. You know, it's been financially for musicians, it's been a really, really hard time. And yeah, that's great news that you guys have both been able to get through it like this. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cool. So yeah, I was just wanted to move it on a little bit and ask you some questions about Bristol.
Okay.
Okay. So like, obviously you perform live a fair bit. What are your favourite venues in Bristol to perform at?
Oh, that I don't know. To me, it's like the audience. I almost just treat every stage like the same. Crofters is cool because it's kind of intimate. Yeah, it's got like a smallish venue. Stage is pretty good. I'd say the Fleece is nice. I do like the Fleece. We did play Ashton Kate, but not the stadium. Unfortunately, that was like the conference room. That was quite cool. It was very open plan. We had to be quite smart for that. And downstairs in the Exchange. Yeah. That's really cool because even just the fact of you think how you're going to get a 7-8 piece band there and you somehow managed to do it on that gig, it was pretty cool. So I like that. That was
my gig.
Yeah, that was my gig.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. What about you, Mez?
So actually, we used to have a regular spot, as you well know, at Zaza Bar.
I know Zaza.
So when it's a good night, when it's jam-packed.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. Incredible. And especially with that new stage they put in. I'll never forget. I can't remember what year it was. It was Halloween a couple of years ago. And there must have been what, 500 people in there at least. There were so many people in there. Absolutely jam-packed. The manager came over and he was like, do you guys want to play a bit more for a bit extra? And we were like, yes, we do. Even if you I think for me, speaking for me, even if he hadn't said for a bit extra, like if he'd have just gone, do you want a pint? I would have been like, yeah, absolutely. Because the crowd was just buzzing, absolutely buzzing. I love that. It's hard to say favourite venues in Bristol. I've seen just as many gigs as played in these venues. The Fleece, I love the Fleece. I really like the Louisiana.
I love Louisiana, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool
sound in there as well. But like the sound on stage is really good. It's just a really nice sounding room. Yeah. Really like it there.
Yeah, definitely. Again, the Exchange. There's so, and actually Thekla. I love Thekla.
Thekla's great.
Yeah.
And you're on a boat, man. That's
it's such a great. It's a bit of a novelty, but it's actually awesome.
I think we actually played like one song on that stage. Marv was there actually, fantastic venue.
Great fun,
great crowd. I think I agree with Marv though. I think all you really need is a great crowd, which it tends to be in Bristol. All you need is a great crowd, and you're set.
You're golden. You can be anywhere. Yeah,
absolutely.
Literally,
yeah. I just want to just relate to you with that Zaza story a bit. I remember I played there 2 or 3 years ago on New Year's Eve, and I'll never forget this. So we were playing. It was kicking off, like it was completely full, similar to what you were saying, and we were playing Celebration just as the clock was ticking to midnight, and we do this thing. We kind of do a countdown. We're all playing, we're all jamming, and then Dom will do like a fill into the new year, basically. So it'd be like on the singing, but and we were playing, and I just remember looking behind me. It was kicking off in front of me. Behind me at midnight, there was just the longest queue I have ever seen of people trying to get into Prism, and I was like, "Why are you doing that? Like, why are you spending like 10 quid to get in there?" And who knows? But it's a similar little story. But it's always a really fun gig in there, especially when it's busy as well. That's great fun.
It's great.
The new stage is great. In fact, we've got the built-in PA there now. Is awesome. It's just easy for loading.
Really,
yeah.
So much of that.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so what would you? Well, I don't know if this really relates to you guys yet because you've not like released a whole lot of music. But what would you say? Do you think is the best thing about being an artist within the Bristol music scene, or maybe just the best thing about the Bristol music scene? If you prefer?
The community. I think
Yeah, hands down.
it's I've heard a lot of people slating the music scene in Bristol a number of times for various different reasons, but as it stands, everybody's connected. I don't know if this is the same for every English city. I don't know every music scene. I don't know about every music scene, but certainly for Bristol, if you don't know the guy on stage, you're gonna have a friend of a friend of a friend who's gonna know him. Maybe not even that long-winded most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Everybody seems really supportive. They just want to help, and it's very sort of very encouraging. It's very
encouraging. No, that's so good.
Yeah, that's what I think. And obviously, everyone seems like a real nice individual, and also the amount of interest in people you meet within the community. The last couple of years, I've been to a couple of gigs, sort of like unsigned artists and stuff, and I always end up having a really interesting conversation with somebody I've never met before in my life, but they're there for the same reason. They're there because they've gone to see the band the same as me. So it's that unifying, that real sort of community spirit.
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway. That's the best thing in my opinion, the community, and how we all seem to sort of merge into one eventually,
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Yeah. Awesome. So like on the other hand, do you think there's anything that could be improved within the music scene?
It's kind of hard, really. I think like a positive for me with the music scene is like the diversity of if you want to go see anything of any genre, there's going to be somewhere. You just have to look for it and know. Yeah. And I view it like the skateboarding community in Bristol that, there's different, not necessarily hierarchies, but, you've got legitimate professional skateboarders there all the way down to the new kids starting. You've got little parts, you've got big parts, you've got pools, you've got ramps, and then you've got legitimate street spots which are known worldwide that other professionals from around the world go to. And I feel like that's the same thing that echoes it in the music scene in Bristol. It's really hard. I don't know. I would say even like maybe even more opportunities for unsigned bands and artists. If there was like a dedicated venue that they could just go there first and hone their skills, like something in between an open mic and a legitimate gig where, I don't know, that there's like a guaranteed crowd or something to that degree. But then I feel like even like venues like Zaza were going to do that at one point. I was in talks of like a new music Sunday thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could be wrong. There probably is a couple of things like that, but maybe just more in the consciousness of the scene.
Yeah, I guess it's like finding these things as well. They probably do exist, but actually, actually getting that information to you that they're actually out there is another thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I just want to further on Marv's point. Everything's great in Bristol. I'm very, very proud to be a part of the city. I'm very proud to be a musician within that community. The only thing I would say would be a grand improvement is if there could be some form of legitimate, like a mini agency to help out bands that have just sort of left uni.
Mm-hmm.
Because too many times, and I know there's agencies around Bristol, I know there's agencies that will take bands in Bristol, but too many times I've seen large disorganization from some of these agents, some big unprofessionalism from them. And I'm not going to name any names.
Okay.
This is not a hate campaign. This is how I feel. Ripping off musicians that, it's like, I think we've spoken about this a million times, Marv. As much as we've done that whole circuit. You know, we've done this little venue and that, and we're taking on weddings now, and we're only going to play these sorts of. It sucks because these younger bands have worked just as hard as we did, as you guys did, Alex. You know, they've worked just as hard, and they deserve a fair wage just as much as anybody else does.
Yeah.
So, but maybe, I don't know if they could like pair with the musicians union so that they can check and make sure that they're legit and they're paying them a decent wage and they're getting them these fair gigs and they're organized, you know, and they're treating them with respect. Because that makes my blood boil that stuff like that still happens now.
Yeah, it's when you're like having to chase people up for money, and you know, it's that sort of thing. It just makes you think, oh, it's not even worth it. I think a lot of the problem as well is there's so many bands out there who are selling themselves too cheap, and it brings the price of everyone down, because there's people who are like, oh, we'll happily play for 50 quid and a couple of beers.
Yeah,
you know.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And that kind of brings the price of everything down. So for kind of maybe more professional, or even like people who are starting out and they want to develop a career in music, it makes it really hard because there's not actually a whole lot of money in it.
No, and I think another thing as well is, like, to echo Merritt's point, it's almost like you have to get stung to be able to progress. It's like you have to have that like stamp mark on you, like, yeah, we got ripped off, this person double booked, or actually they didn't pay us 150 quid, they actually couldn't do it, they said it was 60 because it was someone else's fault, and you find out later down the line that it was all just a bunch of like bull, you know. But I guess it toughens you up, but you shouldn't have to do that, especially for a young band, originals or not. Right? I'm speaking in terms of covers, but originals or not, where it's like that, you're already trying to build up this confidence and identity. And like I said earlier, like, am I a musician yet, or am I a band yet? Are we established yet? And it's like you kind of have to have a little bit of a tough skin and just kind of, again, you talk to other people and they go, yeah, it happens. Be aware of this venue, but you know, if it's cash in hand and you feel all right about it and you're at this point in your career, like, just do it. It's okay.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I just thought I'd finish off by, like, obviously I talked about Bristol a bit, but is there anything overlooming the whole music industry that you'd change? Or are there multiple things?
Oh, so much, isn't there? There's so much. I mean, streaming royalties. I mean, SoundCloud are like trying to change the way that's done now. So that'd be interesting to see.
Okay.
But even just the fact that all of these huge artists and big, well-established artists are still having these problems, and now you've got things like their master tapes are now gone because they only found out 13 years after the fact, after that big fire at UMG.
Yeah.
So where do you go from there? Streaming platforms and the way their contracts are different. Hearing about artists that are like so on the breadline from trying to earn money from streaming, even though they're like legitimate stars or legitimate kind of artists, that's kind of disheartening, because you think, well, what's the point? Because you don't want to be a starving artist. You do want to make money from it. It is a job. It's just a career you want to do, not just a flash in the pan. So maybe something to do there, because there is still money there. It's just in the pockets of the wrong people, or it's tied up in certain bits when it could be shared out. I don't know if, personally, for me, if there's anything else I would change, because, again, as much as you're in the music industry, you're also so not in it. And maybe that's not the avenue I'm in at the minute. Maybe in 10 years' time, I could have way more experience and go, oh, I don't want this, I don't want that. But from interviews I've read and listened to, I think streaming is a big thing that it almost needs to catch up with what's going on, even though it's the most current thing out in terms of, I don't know, people's exposure and how they release their music.
Yeah, obviously the pandemic's like really made things worse in that respect, because people aren't able to earn money from live performance anymore. And you talk about those big artists where they rely on tours and, you know, shows, gigs to actually make money. And when that's not physically possible, they're having to rely on the streaming, and there's just nothing in it at all. It's it's really rubbish situation. Hope things get sorted at some point with that, and the solution sort of gets found. At least, you know, it's a lot has been brought to light on that recently, which is really good. So hopefully we can maybe see some improvement there. But
True. I mean, again, we've got this, you know, with DVDs and CDs being old technology and seeing that shift now. It'd be interesting to see what the next thing is going to compete with streaming, because even though vinyls have kind of boosted up, I don't think they're, if you look at the whole pie, so to speak, they're not exactly competing with streaming in that way. So it would be nice to see what it would be. Could it be documentaries? Yeah. Could it be visual albums that take over completely? Could it be going back to some sort of physical thing? Could it be some sort of, I couldn't tell you, but it'd be very interesting to see. Very interesting to see.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What about you, Merritt? Have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, so I've got a 39-page. No,
imagine.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Definitely. Further on Marv's point, the streaming thing. I remember reading an article about 2 years ago where they were talking about how if you wanted to earn like a livable wage from streaming alone, you'd have to have like 2 billion streams or something like that, which is really, really, really hard to obtain, and for a lot of people unobtainable. Some of the biggest bands going haven't got that.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. More a system that's worked out better for streaming. I think the only thing that really springs to mind is, and a lot of people would disagree with me on this because opportunity is what you make it. But I think more sort of opportunities for up and coming bands. I know we've got like BBC Introducing, and there's God knows how many unsigned artist playlists on Spotify, and you've got your promotion techniques and stuff. But if there was some sort of bridge between unsigned and signed, and here's your contract, here's an advance, go and make me an album, you're on tour in 6 months. If there was some sort of bridge between that, there probably is, I'm probably talking rubbish, but some sort of like, I don't know, they'll take these unsigned artists, they'll help them out, they'll sort of train them up, if you like. They'll give them pointers as to what you should do legally and as to what here's, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Let them worry about creativeness, marketing and stuff. And then, sort of, like I said, scooping them up and sort of having them for a bit and help taking them under their wing and all that. And then giving them to a label if it's applicable. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make no sense?
Like a more advanced artist development kind of scheme.
Yes.
That somehow someone could either invest in, whether monetarily or even just, I don't know, not exposure, because that's not a word, but somehow get your feet off of the ground. Obviously, you could kind of do the vetting process to only use the people that, you know, are either in it for the right reasons or can actually provide some sort of product. Because again, unfortunately, art turns into product when you sell it.
Yeah.
But yeah, some sort of advanced artist development scheme that either ticks all the boxes, so to speak. That'd be very interesting to do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think there are sort of schemes out there, but they're not quite. I don't think they quite make up the bridge where you want to be. They're kind of like, you know, we'll give you a couple of £1,000 and a bit of mentoring, but it's like, yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about that sort of thing. But yeah, that's really interesting thought.
I think it would take out, because obviously a lot of success is associated with luck. I've never been a big believer of that. I've been a big believer of hard work and making your own luck. But when you really, really think about it, in certain ways, a lot of it is to do with luck. Where a band comes out at a certain time, and the things that run alongside, like the social and political issues, or if that's what it means to the band, or I don't know, the way the music's kind of had a bit of a lull and it's a bit droll, and this band's really fresh and no one's heard this before. Obviously a lot of it is to do with luck, but I think half the reason why a lot of people don't see what us three do, and our bands and our peers and our friends and whatever, a lot of the reason as to why a lot of people don't see what we do as like a serious or a real job is because of that luck element. And yeah, I don't know. I've always been very interested to know what people think when I first meet them and I say, yes, I'm a musician. I've always wondered if they've kind of gone, oh, is he really? Oh, I bet he's quite good. Or if they go, yeah, well, he can't be that good because he works at Asda and he's sat at home and he's not doing nothing. You know what I mean? I've always been interested to know, but I have had my not run-ins, but I have had conversations with people where, and I will include this actually, I wasn't going to, my girlfriend's grandmother. I just recently started teaching guitar and I went to meet her for the first time and she shook me by the hand, pre-COVID, she shook me by the hand and she went, "You've got a real job now," which I take absolutely no offence at at all. It's obviously a generational thing at that point. But I have met quite a few people who have kind of gone, you play music, do you? Oh, right. So when do you work hard? You know, that sort of attitude. And I know everybody's different, but like I said, for me, that feeds back into the whole scooping up artists, giving them that next step, and then they can sort of actually make a guaranteed career, which is a bit of a pipe dream and a bit of a in an ideal world sort of statement.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, if I could change anything, if I had a big button to press, that would be my sort of thing, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. It's interesting, like, yeah, moving on from that, like, I think a lot of musicians, to deal with the fact that gigs aren't that well paid or whatever, you know, there's not a whole lot of work out there necessarily. I think a lot of people do that. They end up teaching, they end up doing, you know, little bits of different things to kind of earn money. They start doing DJ gigs. They, you know, trying to think of some other examples, but they just end up doing a load.
I can give you the perfect example, Alex. Starting a podcast. Again, like you said, it's now getting to the point where you get many income streams, which then feed into what you are, as in, I am a musician. It's not just, I'm just going to play my guitar all day.
Yeah.
Because that might have worked. That might have worked, you know, in the big mega bucks kind of land. But I think now it's, what's your brand? What's your USP? What can you expose yourself to? Across how many platforms? Because everyone is trying to fight for the same thing. I don't agree with the thing of, oh, if everyone's trying to do it, you're never going to do it. It's like, not at all. So you just try and expand. And again, with this 50 Ways podcast that we do, where we kind of discuss maybe, you know, quote unquote bad albums, but really we just kind of go, well, why are they bad? And you listen back and you go, actually, they're not too bad, and all these things. Really, the kind of front of that is that it's more just a promotional vehicle for our stuff, because it's another thing that people can attach our name and our artist, you know, label name to then give to more people that might not necessarily listen to Spotify all day, or they're more into podcasts, and you kind of do these things, and then you get your friends on, and that's that community. And then the more consistency you see, that's what builds up. And yeah, again, you know, we've already started getting some sort of income stream from that. So it's nice to see that, I guess, that model works. And you think, what can I apply it to? What other areas of music in the music industry can I apply it to? Yeah,
that's awesome. Wicked. Cool. Well, I think I'll leave it there, guys, just because, time's going on a little bit. But that's really, really insightful stuff there.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Glad to be
here. No worries.
Cool. Thank you.